Hello everyone, today I'll be covering Ind AS 33 EPS questions from Test Your Knowledge. There are 5 questions, we'll be covering all of them. We'll be covering the formulas, the logic behind them and the concepts relevant to that. And at the end of the video, I'll be giving you a small update about Ind AS 19. And on that note, we'll begin the video. So first question, it says that ABC Limited as on 1st January 2000 X1 has 10 lakh shares outstanding, right? And as on 31st March 2000 X1, there is an rights issue 1:5, that means 2 lakh shares at 90 paise, and the fair value cum rights is given 1 rupee. So we are issuing right shares for 90 paise, whereas the fair value including the cum rights, that is the cum rights price, is 1 rupee. And what we have to do is we have to calculate the number of shares for use in EPS, mind you, for the calendar year. This is a part which many might ignore. So for the calendar year means for 31st December 2000 X1. Okay, so we'll directly jump onto the solution here. So we had original shares 10 lakh and on top of that we have a rights issue 1:5, that means 2 lakh shares. And now this is the shares outstanding. The price of the shares given is, for 10 lakh shares we'll use the cum rights because those 10 lakhs were cum rights. Okay, so 1 rupee. But for 2 lakh shares we'll use only the 90 paise value because the 2 lakh are the rights issue which have been issued at 90 paise. So this gives us our total value of the shares outstanding as follows. What I've done is shares outstanding into price, and the total is 11,80,000 rupees is the value of shares outstanding as on 31st March 2000 X1. So 11,80,000 is the value for 12 lakh shares. See the contrast here, and the reason here is that that value is for both, for the original shares which were cum rights as well as for the rights issue. So what we need to calculate here is known as theoretical X rights price. Theoretical X rights price. The meaning of this term is the value of the shares excluding the effect of the right shares. That means once the rights share have been issued, what will be the value of the shares X rights. So it is known as theoretical X rights price. And you can see in the institute solution there is a formula given, or it should be given, that the theoretical X rights price is the value of the shares after the rights have been issued divided by the total number of shares outstanding after the rights have been issued. So this means that we'll do nothing but the value of the shares after the rights have been issued divided by the total number of shares after the rights have been issued, and this gives us theoretical X rights price. So 0.9833 is our theoretical X rights price. That means it is the price of the shares outstanding excluding the value of the rights. Now you can see here that we have issued shares worth 1 rupees at 0.9. Sorry, got a call. Anyways, so whereas theoretical X rights price is 0.9833. Now we are issuing a 1 rupee share for 0.9. That means that there is a hidden bonus element. So how to calculate the bonus factor, the bonus fraction, the bonus element is simple. We have been given a formula by institute that it is cum rights price divided by the theoretical X rights price. But what is the logic is that we are issuing a 1 rupee thing for 0.9833. That means that the difference is somehow our bonus element. So when we divide the cum rights price divided by the X rights price, so we get the bonus factor of 1.016949. So this effectively means that for every one share there is a bonus element of 0.016949 for every one share. Now what is the reason of calculating all this is, see, there is every concept behind it, and if you have watched the main video, so you know the concepts which I'll be speaking about right now. Whenever we are issuing a right shares, what is happening is the shareholder is paying us money to get additional shares. That means that there is an effective change in capital. But on the contrary, whenever we are issuing bonus shares, the shareholder is not paying us a single penny. We are just issuing the shares, and the issuance of shares is nothing but a capitalization of profits. So when we are issuing bonus, there is no effective change in capital as compared to the rights issue. So when there is a rights issue, we do not need to do any retrospective restatement, it is only a prospective treatment. But whenever we are making a bonus issue, Ind AS 33 specifies that we have to do a retrospective restatement, and for that purpose I have to calculate here the bonus factor. So after having calculated the bonus factor, we can now move on to the answer. So the answer will have two parts. First is the 1st January shares, and second is the 31st March rights shares. So for the 1st January shares, we'll have to do a retrospective restatement because the issuance was on 31st March. So for the 3 months of intervening period, we'll have to make a retrospective restatement. That is, the 10 lakh shares will have to be restated by multiplying the bonus factors, and for only 3 months rather than all of the 12 months, because from 1st January to 31st March these shares were outstanding. Post that, we have all of the 12 lakh shares, and these 12 lakh shares have been adjusted for bonus by themselves. So we do not need to multiply the bonus factor. We do not need to retrospectively adjust these shares, because as on 31st March 2000 x2 x1 these shares were already adjusted. So we'll just multiply it by 9 by 12 because these were outstanding from March to December, that is for 9 months. So this leads to our answer that the total number of outstanding shares will be 11,54,237 shares outstanding as on 31st December 2000 x1 for the purpose of calculation of EPS. So this concludes our question 1, and I'll be attaching this Excel sheet to the link. So I just checked the institute answer. It is a bit difference, but I think there is an error in institute's answer. They have not totaled it correctly. They have the same, these two elements, but the total is coming of 246 as per them. So it's a rounding of error. So that's fine. So this becomes our question 1. Now moving on to question 2. Okay. So questions 2 says on 1st January the shares outstanding are 10 lakh again, and there is a 5% convertible bond worth 1 lakh rupees, and the terms of conversion have been given that 120 ordinary shares will be issued for every 100 rupees outstanding of bond. That means 1.2 rupees, 1.2 is the conversion rate, right? And then on 31st March, the holders of 25,000 rupees bonds converted to ordinary shares, and the profit for the year ended 31st December is 2 lakh rupees. Tax rate is given 30%, and we have to calculate the basic and diluted EPS. So this I'll cover in the answer. See, one interesting thing here given is ignore the need to split the convertible bonds into equity and liability instruments, and the reason being is if you have done financial instruments, then you know that there can be two components in a such kind of convertible bonds. So that is why it is saying that you have to ignore both the components and you have to do just a normal solution. So we'll also solve it normally as the institute is asking us. Okay. Question 2 is on basic and diluted EPS. So I'll give a brief. Basic EPS considers anything that has actually happened, whereas diluted EPS considers anything that has not happened but can happen. Simple words. So in this case, what you can see is there are bonds 5% convertible, but out of these bonds 25,000 have actually converted as on 31st March 2000 whatever the year is. That means they were actually converted for 9 months. So we have to incorporate these 9 months 25,000 rupees bonds in our basic EPS. But for the diluted EPS, there will be two things which will be affecting our answer. First will be the 25,000 rupees bonds for the 3 months, that is from 1st January to 31st March. The 25,000 rupees bonds were not converted. So for 3 months we'll adjust the profit by the interest saving and the shares by the outstanding shares converted, right? And for the 75,000 rupees bonds, we'll have to consider all the 12 months because they have not converted as at the year end. That means we'll have to consider the interest saving as well as the conversion of shares for all the 12 months in case of 75,000 rupees bonds in diluted EPS. So first I'll calculate the easy part, obviously basic EPS. So basic EPS says that you'll take the profit. Now the profit given is 2 lakh rupees. See, this 2 lakh rupees is actually adjusted for the interest savings which actually happened for the 25,000 rupees bonds for the 9 months. The reason being is that the profit is given as on 31st December rather than 31st March or any other period. So because it is on 31st December, it has already considered the 25,000 rupees bonds interest savings net of tax. So I'll not adjust the profit in case of basic EPS, I'll adjust the outstanding shares, because the outstanding shares given in question is as on 1st January, not on 31st December. So as on 1st January, we had outstanding shares 10 lakhs. Just a second. This is on 1st January, whatever the year is, and we'll adjust these shares for the 25,000 rupees bonds which have been converted. So what we'll do is 25,000 rupees bonds will be converted, will be multiplied by 1.2. 1.2 is nothing but 120 divided by 100. For every 100 rupees bonds, we'll be issuing 120 shares. That means that the multiplication factor is 1.2 for every 1 rupee bond. So I've multiplied 25,000 by 1.2. So this will be our shares converted, but these shares will be outstanding only for 9 months. The reason being that the conversion has been done on 31st March. So I'll multiply it by 9 by 12. So 22,500 will be our shares outstanding. So our total number of shares outstanding will be this much, and therefore we can calculate the basic EPS as 1.63. In just a second, the outstanding shares is 10 lakhs. Okay, so our outstanding EPS, basic EPS is actually 0.1956. Okay. Now I'll calculate the diluted EPS. So you have to pay a bit attention here because things might be a bit complicated if you are not well aware with the theory. Right. So 2 lakhs again is our profit given in the question. Now this profit, as I said, has to be adjusted for two things. So the first thing I'll adjust it is for the 25,000 rupees bond, and secondly I'll adjust it for the 75,000 rupees bonds. Right. So for the 25,000 rupees bonds, I was paying an interest of 0.05, that is 5%, and this interest I will be saving for 3 months, because the 9 months has already been considered in the profit because it was actual conversion. But the 3 months is not the actual conversion. This is only for the case of diluted EPS. So into 3 by 12. So 312 rupees will be our interest saving on the 25,000 rupees bonds. But again, this is not net of tax. So I'll have to adjust it for tax by multiplying 0.7, because tax rate is 30%. So if I'm paying 100 rupees as an interest, the Income Tax Act allows me a deduction, and if the tax rate is 30 rupees, that means I've saved 30 rupees of tax on 100 rupees. So the effective interest outgo was 70 rupees. So in this case again, the effective interest outgo was multiplied by 0.7 to consider the net of tax effect. That means we will be saving 218.75 rupees had the 25,000 rupees bonds been converted on 1st January itself, right? Now similarly, we'll calculate for the 75,000 rupees bonds. We will be paying a 0.05% interest, and this interest was being paid for all of the year, 12 by 12, because these have not been converted till the year end. So had they been converted at the beginning of the year, we would have saved interest for all of the 12 months as compared to the 25,000 rupees where we took only for 3 months, because they had been converted actually after 3 months. So into 12 by 12, and this will again be multiplied by 0.7 for considering the tax effects. So this gives us our profit at 202,843.75. This is the adjusted profit for the purpose of diluted EPS. Now we'll have to calculate the outstanding shares. So again, outstanding shares will be adjusted for all the things we just did for the profit, right? So outstanding shares we have 10,22,500 will be taken, because the outstanding shares were 10 lakh as on 1st January, which has been adjusted for the 25,000 rupees bonds for the 9 months, which was actual conversion. So actually our outstanding shares were 10,22,500. Now this will be adjusted for the diluted conversions. That is for the 25,000, we'll convert it for 3 months. So we'll multiply it by 1.2 for 3 months. and for 75,000 we'll again multiply it by 1.2 for 12 months, right? So this gives us our total outstanding shares at 11,20,000. So our EPS, diluted EPS, will be 0.18, or you can say 0.1811. So these are the two answers we get for the question. I hope I tried to make it as clear as possible. So after that I'll move on to the next question, question 3. So question 3 is a Marwadi Buddhi question. What is happening in the question is, as on 1st January, there is 10 lakh shares outstanding and the profit for the year ended is 1 lakh rupees, right? And average fair value is 8 rupees. The company has in issue 2 lakh options to purchase ordinary equity shares. So there are 2 lakh options outstanding which have the exercise price of 6 rupees. That means that the shareholders can get 2 lakh additional shares for 6 rupees, whereas the fair value is 8 rupees, right? So they are getting a cheaper deal. That means that there is a hidden bonus element here. So let us do a quick calculation in this case. So the share options outstanding are 2 lakh. These 2 lakh share options have been availed at the exercise price of 6 rupees. That means if they vest for the option, if they exercise the option, they'll be effectively paying the company 12 lakh rupees. And this 12 lakh rupees will effectively cost the company how many shares? Is 1,50,000 shares. So the shareholders have an option to exercise 2 lakh shares at 6 rupees, but the fair value is 8 rupees. That means that they are effectively getting 1,50,000 shares and 50,000 bonus shares. So the bonus element here is, the bonus element is 2 lakh, which was the actual share options, minus the effective shares that will be issued, 1,50,000. So the bonus is of 50,000 shares. Okay, I hope this is clear. So in this case again, when we have to calculate the diluted EPS, we'll adjust it for the 50,000 shares. So first we'll calculate the basic EPS, even if it is not asked, always calculate it. So basic EPS will be the profit for the year 1 lakh divided by the shares outstanding 10 lakh. So 0.1. And when you calculate the diluted EPS, you have to adjust the profit for the options. So what you will do is you will again take the profit, which was 1 lakh rupees, and divide it by the outstanding shares adjusted for the bonus element. So the outstanding shares we have is 10 lakh, which will be adjusted for the 50,000 bonus element. So we'll divide it by 10 lakh 50,000, which will give us 0.095238 diluted EPS. So this was an easy question, I guess. Now we'll move on to question 4. So question 4 is nothing but a big brother of question 1, right? So it is question 1's bigger form. So again we'll use the same things we have done in question 1. So even I can go as far as copying the format. So in question 4, I'll read out the question. We have to calculate the EPS for all the 3 years for which we have been given the profit. We have the shares outstanding, we have the right 1 for 5 again, and we have the exercise price, date of right issue, last date to exercise right issue, and the market price 11 rupees, which is the market price before exercise. That means it is the come rights price 11 rupees and the exercise price is 5 rupees. So again it is a simple question. See, the shares outstanding are 500, and for every 5 shares we are issuing 1 share. That means we'll be issuing 100 shares. So the price of the rights issue is 0.915 rupees, and the price of the original shares given is 11 rupees. Yeah. So this means that we arrive at a theoretical X rights price 6,000 divided by 610 rupees and the bonus factor of 1.1. Now we have to see, we did not do anything new as of now. Just we have to now restate all the profits and restate all the shares and the EPS. So first, like, I'll do 2 things here. I'll calculate the basic EPS which would be normally there, and then I'll calculate the basic EPS which would be restated because of the bonus factor which we just now calculated. right? So we have 2000 x0, 2000 x1 and 2000 x2 and the profit given for those years are 1100, 1500, 1800 and we have shares outstanding. Then we can also take shares outstanding restated. So when I take normal shares outstanding, they are just 500. So I can directly arrive at the EPS as follows. But when I'm talking about the restated part, so the shares have to be restated for the bonus factor. So when we had 500 shares outstanding for 2000 x0, we'll multiply it by the bonus factor because these 500 shares were outstanding for whole of the year. So they will be 550 outstanding shares. When I talk about 2000 x1, there will be a complication because the last date to exercise is 1st March. That means the 500 shares were outstanding for 2 months and post that we have 600 shares outstanding for the rest of 10 months. So we'll have to multiply the bonus factors only for 2 months. So here there will be two components. The first component will be 500 shares multiplied by the bonus factor only for 2 months. And then the second component will be our 600 shares which were outstanding for 10 months. See, these 600 already incorporate the bonus factor and therefore we do not multiply the bonus factors to them. So this will be our basic EPS restated for 2000 x1, and for 2000 x2 we can simply take 600 because these 600 were outstanding for all of the 12 months and they have already been adjusted for the bonus factor. So these are our basic EPS restated for the question 4. So this is the final answer. Wait, I think there is a formula issue. Yeah, the formula will be this. So these are our final answers for all the years. Wait, we cannot calculate this and this because the rights have been actually issued in 2000 x1. That means that for 2000 x1 we cannot have the basic EPS by dividing by 500. So this will be our final answer. For 2000 x0 we can calculate the basic EPS using 500 because that was the real case, but for x1 and x2 we had the right issue, so we cannot use 500 as the base of shares outstanding. So these will be our final answers finally. Now question 5 is the most interesting question which I find in Index 33. We have to calculate the EPS basic as well as diluted for the subsidiary as well as the group or the parent. Right. So for subsidiary and group, when it is asking, first we will calculate for the subsidiary because for subsidiary we do not have to club any figures. So for subsidiary, when I am calculating, first I'll calculate basic EPS, which is the easier part, then we always calculate the diluted EPS. So when you see for the subsidiary basic EPS calculation, we have profit at 5400 rupees and we have shares outstanding as 1000, right? Now when the question is saying profits, does it say that the profit is attributable to ordinary shareholders? It does not say that. When we think about the PL statement, after profit we distribute the profit amount to the dividend as a dividend to the preference shareholders, and after that we have the profit attributable to the ordinary shareholders. So this 5400 is the profit and not the profit attributable to the equity shareholders, right? So we have to adjust this profit for the dividend given to the preference shareholders. So for preference shareholders we are giving 1 rupee dividend for 400 shares. That means that we will subtract 400 rupees preference dividend from here. That means we'll have 5000 rupees as profit attributable to the ordinary shareholders. Now this warrants will not be adjusted because these warrants have not actually been exercised. So for the purpose of basic EPS, these will not be taken into the consideration. So 5 rupees is our basic EPS. When I talk about diluted EPS, my profit was 5,000 rupees, but this profit has been adjusted for the dividend to preference shares. But if I am calculating diluted EPS, what I'll assume is I will convert the preference share into ordinary shares. That means that the dividend will not actually be paid. That means I'll not take the profit as 5,000, but I'll take it as 5,400, because the preference share will be converted into ordinary, and therefore there will be no dividend paid to the preference shareholders. Now I'll calculate the shares. So 1000 shares were outstanding ordinarily, but when the preference are converted, they will be converted 1:1, one ordinary share for one preference share. That means 400 ordinary shares will be issued to the preference shareholders, and this 0.5 which I have written here, this 0.5 is nothing but the conversion ratio for the warrants. How we are arriving it is that the warrant holders are paying 10 rupees to get a 20 rupees shares. That means that they are gaining a benefit of 10 rupees. So 10 divided by 20, 0.5 will be the conversion rate. They are gaining 10 rupees for every 20 rupees ordinary share. That means we are issuing one share for every 2 warrants. So we'll have warrants, 150 warrants into 0.5, that is the conversion rate. So we'll have outstanding shares, just a second. Okay, this has been well done. We'll have outstanding shares of 1475. So we'll use the same formula to calculate our diluted EPS. So our diluted EPS turns out to be 3.66. So this was for our subsidiary. Now we'll calculate for the group as a whole. So for the group, we'll have to consider the income which the parent will get from the subsidiary also. So profit in the books of parent is given as 12,000 rupees, excluding any earnings or dividend paid by the subsidiary. So we'll consider the 12,000 rupees. On that we'll have to add whatever income we'll receive from the subsidiary. So from the subsidiary we'll receive income on 800 ordinary shares as well as 300 convertible preference shares. See, warrants have not been exercised, so there will be no income on warrants. So for 800 ordinary shares and 300 preference share, we'll consider the income. So we have to consider the income which we'll get from the subsidiary. So in income we'll get two things from the subsidiary. First is on our ordinary share and second is on our preference share. So ordinary share, we have 800 ordinary share in which the subsidiary will pay 5 rupees of dividend, and for the preference share we have 300 preference share on which the subsidiary will pay 1 rupee. So that means we'll get a total of 4,300 rupees from the subsidiary. This means that our total profit will be 16,300 and our outstanding shares will remain unchanged at 10,000 rupees. 10,000 shares. That means our basic EPS will be 1.63. Right, so this was the calculation for group's basic EPS. Now I'll calculate the bit complicated part, diluted EPS. So for diluted EPS, we'll have to calculate the profit. So profit 12,000 rupees was of the subsidiary's own profit. Now in this case, we'll assume that the subsidiary will convert its dividend shares as well as its warrants into ordinary shares, and therefore the subsidiary will not pay any dividend income on the preference share to the holding company. So now the holding company will get profit from subsidiary, dividend from subsidiary. So what we'll assume here is the holding company will convert its preference shares as well as its warrants into ordinary shares, and post that also the ordinary shares of 800 are already existing. That means that there are ordinary shares 800, there will be preference shares which will be converted into ordinary shares of 300, and then there are warrants. These warrants outstanding are 30, out of which we have the conversion rate of 0.5. So that means we'll have 15 warrants also. So we'll have a total 1115 of conversion, and on this conversion, on this total outstanding shares we hold in the subsidiary, we'll get a diluted EPS of the subsidiary of 3.66. So our total earnings, total profits for the purpose of diluted EPS will be 16082, and we'll divide it by outstanding shares of 10,000. See, the warrants, the ordinary shares, the preference shares which will be converted is for the perspective of the subsidiary and not from the perspective of the holding. That is why it does not affect the holding company's outstanding shares, because holding company has not issued it. These things are the investments of holding company and not the equity. This is the equity of holding company, and that is why the denominator here remains unchanged, and then a diluted EPS can be calculated as 1.608 or 1.61. So this gives us our answer for question 5 also, and this completes my discussion on all the questions. I hope I tried my best to discuss and clear all the concepts as well as the logics. And on that note, this part is over. But as I said, there is a thing of Ind AS 19 which I wanted to discuss. So see, this is the Ind AS 19 which I was again reading and all, so that I can make a video on it. But when I was making, when I read all this, what I found is that my earlier video which I've already uploaded on Ind AS 19 is the best video you can find. The reason being is that the institute's SM is a bit complicated in this chapter. Ind AS 19 is bit complicated, not properly arranged, not sequential in that case, and therefore it will make lots of complications for you when you go through the Ind AS 19 from the SM itself. But when you go through Ind AS 19 from the video which I've already uploaded, in that video I made charts myself which will simplify this chapter to a great extent. So that is why I have decided not to upload any new video, although I was studying so that I can upload a new video, but now I do not think that a new video would justify the topic as much as that old video has done. That is why I recommend that you should watch the old videos, and if there is a need, we can discuss the questions separately, for which I can make a separate video, right? On that note, I'll end this video, and do like this video so that more people can watch it, and rest, share and subscribe to my channel, right?